God bless you. Today I wanted to talk to you on the subject of when God uses rejection in your life. Now, we know that rejection is not a blessing, but it is actually a curse. And we read that when God spoke to Samuel, he said, "How long will you mourn, Saul? For I have rejected him." And when God rejected Saul, it was a curse. It went as a curse. Things did not go well for Saul. Now, what am I saying? I'm not saying that when God uses people to reject you, he's cursing you. That's not what I'm saying. Now, rejection is always a last resort, because I'm sure that God spoke to Saul again and again and again. And because Saul didn't obey God, God then had to reject Saul. And the same is with you and I. There's times where God is speaking to you. Sometimes he's calling you out of a certain setting or groups of people. It may be even time for you to leave your church. Why? Not because the church is bad, but because it's your season to move on and go somewhere else. This happened with me, so I know by experience. And when you're not listening, and you think it's not God, and you think it's the enemy, thinking, I've got to stay in this friendship, or I've got to stay in this certain group or this church, God will then use rejection to separate you. Because there's a saying I once heard, those that do not hear must feel. And it's the same, because God is a father. And when you trust him and you depend on him, he is going to direct you and he's going to lead you. And sometimes when you don't hear, you will feel the consequence of not listening. Just as a father would discipline his own child that he truly loves, God will do the same with you when you truly trust him and you depend on him. And this happened to me. This actually happened to me. The Lord was calling me to leave my church that I was at. And I told the Lord, I'm going to stay here for X amount of time. I was leading worship there. And you know what happened in the end? God used what I know as Babel, and God separated me and took me out of that church setting, and where my pastor then released me into ministry, thank God. But it wasn't nice the way it happened. But obviously the Bible says, we must live at peace at all times. And the outcome in the end was peaceable. But had I listened to the Lord in the beginning, it wouldn't have come to that. There wouldn't have had to be that sense of feeling pushed out or rejected by who I was rejected by in the church. So what I'm saying is, listen to the Spirit of the Lord, what he's saying to you, and don't be a Saul. Don't be someone that disobeys God and partially obeys God. But I know it's not easy always to obey God, because sometimes it takes sacrifice, it takes discipline. But that's what makes you a person of character. That's what makes you a person of integrity, okay? The Bible says narrow is the road that leads to life, and a few find it. And when you truly say yes to Jesus, you will find yourself saying no a lot more than you have ever done in your life. Because that narrow road, you can't take everybody with you. And there's some doors Jesus wants you to walk through alone, certain doors. So God can use rejection in your life. And I believe that God uses rejection as a last resort, because we do not hear him clearly, or we are being disobedient. So I want you to know, even then, it's the grace of God and the goodness of God. And he restores us, and he still loves us, because God can never reject us. But he may use circumstances that may not be nice to get his perfect will done. Ultimately, all things work together for good for those who love God and are called. So I just wanted to share this video with you today, that know that, sometimes people may reject us. And sometimes God may use Babel, where there seems like there's confusion and misunderstandings. Sometimes it's to separate us from the people he wants to separate us from, just for that season. Just like Joseph was separated from his brothers, but it was just for a season. But so just know that, rejection is something that God uses as a last resort when we don't hear him. So go before the Lord and say, Lord, is there anything that I'm missing? Is there something that I am assuming that you're saying and you're not saying? Help me to obey you. I don't want to be disobedient, and I don't want to have to be rejected by people that you want to separate me from. I'd rather separate myself now or obey you in this situation rather than go through the rejection. Okay? So God bless you. Hope this helped you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.